Very good morning, everyone. And I'm Abdul Razak from Global Frontiers. And I warmly welcome all of you all today for the webinar on the influence of AI in HR, Trend O4, which is co hosted by Global Frontiers, People's HR, and EITBS Ghana. Our goal today is to explore the profound impact that AI is having on HR practices and strategies. Joining us today, we have two experts in the field, Mr. Luxsho Logan from Papers HR and Dr. Kwame Annor from Ghana. Let me give a little bit about them. Starting from Mr. Luxsho Logan, he is the Vice President of Global Sales of Papers HR. He is a seasoned leader with over 18 years of experience. Recently, he has shared his insights on HR compliances at IHR in Kenya at annual HR Congress in Mombasa. And a little bit on Dr. Kwame is a highly experienced HR professional with over 20 years in HR management and strategy across various industries. He is published author on leadership and governance and was recognized as a top HR practitioner in Ghana in 2018. So now let me hand over this webinar to Mr. Luxsho Logan. And while do we going through this webinar, you can drop your queries in the comment section. Over to you, Mr. Luxsho.
Thank you, Abdul, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are joining us. And thank you for investing in the next hour to listen to both myself and Dr. Kwame on AI's influence on HR. So what I thought I would do is probably take a step back, and so that we're on the same page, just make some definitions in terms of what exactly is AI. Because I think a lot of folks have different definitions and different meanings in terms of what AI means or what it applies to them in their world. When I speak to a lot of individuals, not just HR, but business folks, when we talk about AI, what they really mean is generative AI. So these have been really popularized through solutions like ChatGPT, for example, which has been around for the last sort of 12 plus months. But if we really take a step back, what does AI mean in its core? And really, AI is nothing new. It's been around especially in the HR sphere for many years now. But essentially, what I mean when I talk about AI is not just the automation of specific tasks, but automating tasks by making predictions in terms of the likely outcome. So automating is one thing, but simply what decision to be made is where the AI comes in. So if we look at AI as different certain layers, the first layer I'm going to start with is what I call machine learning, or what is called machine learning. Machine learning and its core function essentially means is if I have a series of past transactions or past decisions that have been made in the past, what I can notice as an individual or as a machine is there are certain patterns. When certain things happen, a very high likelihood a certain decision is being made. That is what we call decision machine learning. And so over the time, you've come together with this specific data, and with high probability, you can predict a certain decision being made. A great example of this is Netflix. So if those of you who are using Netflix, what you'll notice if you watch a particular program, after a series of programs you watch, Netflix will make recommendations in terms of what other programs to watch. And essentially, that's machine learning at its core. It's understanding that you've made certain decisions, you've decided on certain programs, and it knows based on the likelihood, based on previous data, on thousands of other users, that you are likely to want to watch this particular program. And that is how Netflix keeps you going as a user. Now, if you take that same technology, there are many applications you can use it when it comes to HR. So there are a number of assets when it comes to areas in the HR sphere, whether it be recruitment, onboarding, learning and development, performance management, succession planning, experience management, you name it. When it comes to HR, there are a number of assets that you can use when it comes to applying machine learning. And this is what I'm going to be talking about in AI. Now, for those of you who are a little bit more advanced when it comes to generative AI, which I then go to the next layer, which is called deep learning. Hold on, I will touch upon that a little bit later on. But when it comes specifically to machine learning and how it can be applied to HR, rather than go through all these lists that I've listed here, what I thought I'll do today, just in the interest of deep diving on one particular area where I think there's a lot of you can use today, I'm going to touch upon more on the recruitment side, onboarding, and L&D. Okay, so when it comes to the recruitment and L&D, what's interesting as well, I got this data point from Gartner, and what Gartner mentioned here was 76% of HR leaders believe that if their organization does not adopt or implement AI solutions in the next 12 to 24 months, like ChatGPT, they're going to be lagging in comparison to their other peers in other organizations. Now, the interesting number here is more than 90% of business leaders, CEOs, believe the same thing. So HR is going to, AI is going to be here to stay, especially when it comes to the HR sphere. And so people recognize that, look, I don't know it completely. I'm not 100% across AI, but I can see the profound impact that it's having on my organization. And if I don't do something soon, I'm going to be left behind. And with technology moving as rapidly, as quickly as it is, I can see why the fear and concern is there. And this is where technology adoption and HR transformation in particular, when it comes to technology, is coming more and more current every month that goes by. I've seen it many times this year alone. Now, going back to recruitment and L&D and onboarding, okay? So I'm going to touch upon a few areas when it comes to the recruitment. And let's start off with something as simple as job descriptions. Now, if you think about the conventional way of doing a job description, I have an open job requisite. I'll create a standard JD and I will publish that, and away I go. Now, the challenge is when you keep doing that, job functions change, requirements change, skill sets change, and using the conventional JD that you may have used maybe months, if not years prior, is not really going to work. What we've also noticed with HR professionals, or not just HR, but business professionals, a lot of biased language is used because that was what worked for you in the past. But now what we're finding is that things are changing. And so even specific words can have a unintentional negative impact on people who may be applying for the job, whether it be intentional or unintentional. Now, imagine this when it comes to AI or any type of automation technology. What we've seen with technologies like ChatGPT, the generative AI, the deep learning technology I spoke about, all of a sudden now you can automate these job descriptions. So doing quite a simple sort of request saying, give me a job description on a marketing manager with X amount of years experience, specifically with these type of skill set, all of a sudden now technologies such as ChatGPT can create a job description for you, and in a matter of seconds, which improves efficiencies and saves time when it comes to a lot of folks who may be doing this time in, time out. Now, did you know that not only can you use AI or ChatGPT to craft job descriptions, but did you know you could also use it to craft tailor-made messages to outreach for candidates? So in my role specifically, it's hard to find really good sales professionals, marketing professionals, HR professionals. And so a lot of times I have to go out and outreach to find great candidates. Posting a job online isn't going to be enough. These are what I call reactive type prospects, people who are actively looking for a job. But what about the passive candidates, the ones who are not actively engaged, who are not actively looking for a job? What AI allows me to do is create tailor-made messages based on their profile, call it LinkedIn, Facebook, or their X account. And then I can tailor-made a personalized message that can go out to engage with them to see whether they are interested in the role or not. So there's some really, really cool things you can do with some of these technologies. Once we screen their applicant, so once we've identified their candidate, we move into what is typically like applicant screening. So a lot of people may be not new to this, because if you're using ATS systems or automated tracking solutions, this is nothing new for you. But essentially, these are technologies that will automatically screen a candidate based on skill set, experience, and particular know-how of the job. But what this does for me as a recruiter or a HR professional, I can fast track in terms of which candidates make sense for me and shortlist them based on purely their skill set, education, and what they can bring to the job. So again, it removes a bit of the bias or some of that human error that may come with me shortlisting candidates if I was to manually go through all these resumes or CVs, if I was to do this the old-fashioned way. We move on to online interviewing. Now, this seems to be a very, very hot topic for a number of HR recruitment specialists, especially when you have more than 100 different applicants that are applying for the one single job. And I know in some markets, this becomes a real challenge for a number of recruiters out there. And rather than shortlist or leaving technologies just to shortlist the number of candidates or resumes you receive, what AI has allowed us to now do is take it even further from an online interview process. So let me explain. So usually in the first round of interviewing, a recruiter or a HR will screen a candidate to ensure that what they have provided on the resume checks out, is valid, and if there's any other information that's not written on paper, that they can also get out in terms of that candidate interview. But imagine this: what AI and what technologies allow us to do is to now automate this process through video screening. So what now a lot of companies are now using through technology is allow them to automate this through a series of questions that be prompted to the applicant. And then what happens is the technology record their answers. Now, what technology will now do, and this is how far technology has come, is we'll be actually able to identify certain cues, gestures, facial expressions in terms of how a candidate will respond to the question. So if a question is being asked, and just by the facial reaction, all of a sudden now technology will allow them to pick up whether that person is being honest, they're lying, is there something that they may be hiding, so that you can then double down on the questioning if you were to take them to the next round. But these are sort of things that, help human or mitigate human error, or errors that, maybe people may have not been able to pick up in the past, that technology has done through series of looking at different videos, different types of interviews, and pinpointing where people have lied or been honest or not. This is, again, machine learning, making predictions whether things are being genuine or honest or not, based on what the data has been provided to that particular model and that technology. So some really, really cool things you can do now with the technology and AI. So once we've got a candidate on board, fun fact here: did you know a poor onboarding experience can actually increase employee turnover? So a lot of folks don't realize this, but if you think about the amount of time, the energy, the cost to go out and source candidates, to identify candidates, to then put in the offer and then get them to the organization, and then to realize after 3, 4, 5 months they decide to leave, that is a huge waste of company resources. And they're very, very simple fix, to be honest with you. And it comes down to a very poor onboarding experience. Now, if you look at the data and if you look at a number of organizations, a big part of the turnover does occur in the first 6 months. And really, it comes down to what was lost in poor onboarding to get them quickly customized in terms of what they need to do in their role, who they need to know, stakeholder connections, the proper training in terms of how to work in a particular organization. Sometimes that is delayed or it's not done at all. And because of that, that ends up being a cost to an organization. Cost being you need to go back and do the whole thing again. And that's time lost for an organization and lost in productivity. And some numbers based on Business News Daily can be as much as 300% of an employee's salary. So these are sort of things that should be taken seriously and taken note of. But this is some things that all can be automated through technology. So imagine this: you have an employee who joins an organization, and through this simple sign on their first day, they get a series of emails introducing them to the company, introducing them to the learning, introducing them to who they need to meet. Particular calendar entries in their week have been already been set up through a series of people they need to speak to in the organization. Just that simple act alone, by automating process, can eliminate that turnover by as much as 80%. It's just remarkable that that simple little thing can improve employee productivity, but also the employee experience when they join the organization. And this can all be automated by just through technology. So people don't need to get involved if they don't need to. So building on upon the topic of learning and development doesn't just need to stop at the onboarding part of it. So everyone has heard about quiet firing, quiet retiring, quiet hiring. These are all terms that have been thrown out in the market of late. Quiet hiring is essentially finding people in your organization that you can reskill, that can be essentially been utilized in another role. Now, how do we do that with technology? Because training is not as simple as just providing a particular training program. And not every employee is required to take the same type of training. Each individual is different, their requirements may be different, and their asks may be different. So how do we use technology to do that? Now, what we've seen with AI technologies, based on particular functions and what they do, based on sort of feedback they're given, based on maybe particular managers that are kind of given feedback, based on particular projects that have kind of taken place, based on where the company is going for, or the direction that they're going for. Technology can now make suggestions based on title, role, function, and where they need to go to, all through technology. And so essentially where people need to go, say, for example, you've got a series of marketing people and you're looking to hire for sales. How do you then use this existing skill set of a marketing professional to get them over to sales based on tenure, experience, and how much time they've been spending with sales? Or someone from engineering who needs to move and make a transition to business. Someone from finance who's making a transition to engineering because of the skill sets they have with numbers. Those things can be applied by understanding who they are and then providing the right type of learning material for that individual so that they can get the right skills so they can transition to the new roles in particular. This I've seen with a number of organizations who are really implementing the quiet hiring process to get their current staff skilled up quickly so that they can move into new roles, so they can adapt to the ever-ending requirements for that organization. So some really, really cool things that AI can do to automate that process. This kind of dives into the whole employee performance and behavior experience. So I kind of share this for a number of people in the HR world. Your number one customers are, in fact, your employees, not your buying customers, but your employees. These are your internal customers. And how they experience your organization will in turn return huge dividends to the end customers in the end. And so how you treat your customers, the experience they get, all matters. But again, when you are managing hundreds, if not thousands of employees, that's not so simple. And this is where technology, again, has allowed us to make things really, really simple. And so there's a couple of questions in terms of privacy and integrity of how you use data, but the technology does exist. So now all of a sudden, with the technology, you can identify sentiments of an employee through the emails they send out, through the type of conversations they're having with their fellow staff or customers, through employee surveys that you may engage with. All this data can be collated and make very, very powerful predictions in terms of whether an employee is happy, they're not happy, are they likely to leave, or they're likely to say something negative about your organization. But the technology is out there. So how you use that can save you a lot of time and cost and make action before it's too late. I always tell HR professionals that when an employee decides to leave your organization, quite frankly, it's too late to change their mind. But if you know if they're likely to leave an organization based on a poor experience, maybe if they're burnt out, they're kind of disengaged, maybe they're just not happy for whatever reason. If you know that information 3, 4, 5 months ahead of time, perhaps you can actually take action to prevent the unfortunate from happening. So technology can allow you to do that, and again, save you from the cost of having to go through that entire rehiring process. Some really cool things. So we talked about a lot of the benefits of how AI, we talked about the machine learning, but even the generative AI from the chat GPTs and the chatbots of the world in terms of how we can actually improve the employee engagement, the employee experience, and improve efficiencies and improve productivity in an organization. But it starts with how an organization uses it, because the technology does exist, but if you're not using it properly and you're not using it to measure actual KPIs and measurable impact, then it's of no use, no good. So what I do encourage a lot of HR professionals who are going to embark in this journey and use AI technologies, whether it be the first level of machine learning or even going to the next level of deep learning, is to ensure that you do optimize it and integrate it with the applications that you want to then measure, because it is all around data and it's all around measurement. So if you can measure the actual material impact of how AI is impacting your organization, whether you're trying to measure the cost of hiring somebody, or whether you want to measure how soon someone is productive in your organization. And so you can measure the ROI. So if you need to demonstrate to your business or your senior leaders why you're doing certain things, whatever it is, if you're going to measure it, make sure that it is integrated and you are measuring it every week, if not month, so you can get those metrics. So then you know the material impact of AI. I see this time and time again. A lot of folks and a lot of organizations trying to incorporate AI or technology, but then don't know how to measure its impact in organization. And then later on, when they try to explain it to the business, or when business leaders try to understand, I've spent all this money, what's been the impact, and they haven't measured it, it's very, very hard to then justify to continue that investment. So if you are going to do this, ensure that it is measured, so then you can justify any investment in the technology. So that's my biggest sort of takeaway for anyone thinking about embarking on this journey. But with all technologies, it would be remiss of me not to talk about some of the limitations. AI is not here to solve everyone's challenges, nor it is going to be the solution for everything. There are limitations, and there are areas that we need to be aware of as HR professionals or even business professionals. If you're using tools like ChatGPT, be mindful that it is public data. It's public information. If you are trying to measure information, or you're trying to measure details within your own organizations through chatbots, for example, and you're integrating ChatGPT, just be mindful that it's public information and it's not necessarily going to know about information about your organization. So these are going to be things that you need to train the tools so you can understand your organization. Also understand that there are biases when it comes to AI. Like all technologies, it's been trained by people. So when it's trained by people, people unfortunately are biased. So whether it's been trained, these sort of responses do come out. I'll give you an example that happened. I think some people may have been aware of this. This comes through Apple. So if those of you are using Apple phones, Apple Pay. Now, when Apple Pay was first launched, the models were trained by certain individuals that gave preference to males over females. And so when females, though the qualifications were the exact same as the male, what they found out that the females were getting rejected for their Apple Pay application to get credit over the males, even though their background and their credentials and their incomes, tax payments were exactly the same. So there are sometimes these bias errors that do occur through the training of these models. So there's still a lot of learning that the tools need to go through to perfect some of these biases. And then the hot topic around at the moment is around data security, because privacy, data security is also something that needs to be mindful. I spoke about how technology can go into emails, it can go into like calendars and get some great insights. But just be mindful that it may not be applicable, and there may be some data protection laws in your respective countries that may not allow you to do that. So you just got to be mindful that there are some limitations in terms of what you can, what you can't do. So that's something that also needs to be, you need to be mindful when you're adopting certain technologies. It won't solve everything, but it will definitely help improve a number of different areas. So we spoke about the ethics, the biases I covered already, the privacy we spoke about. But one thing that also a lot of folks don't also talk about is the transparency. Now, how are these models, how are these decisions being made? Remember, we're talking about decisions based on a series of data points that were made over collecting thousands, if not millions, of decision-making points. And this is how these decisions have been made in terms of predictions. But sometimes it's not as transparent. Like in the case of the Apple Pay example, how did it come to that prediction? Why is it that certain decisions are being made by AI? And if you don't know that, and that's not explainable, that is also a problem. We call this decisions being made through black boxes. Now, if there's a lot of black boxes being incorporated in the AI decision process, that is a problem. So what I would encourage you to do is, if you're ever going to embark on any AI technologies, ensure that it's transparent. You have a blueprint in terms of clearly how decisions are being made and how those predictions are made. Because if it's not, then you're at risk of making some bad decisions based on someone training the data because of biases. And so these are sort of things that we need to be conscious of when it comes to AI technologies, especially when it comes to HR, because you are dealing with people at the end of the day, and you do not want to get yourself into a situation where wrong decisions have been made when it comes to people. It's a big no-no. So I see a lot of questions being asked. I promise you we will come to them. The team will be answering those questions, or I'm happy to answer questions at the end of the presentation. So for the ultimate question, the topic of the whole purpose of this presentation, is AI a friend or foe? Because there are some benefits, definitely, and there are also some not so good things that AI can bring to the table as well. Now, the million-dollar question I also get asked from HR professionals is, will AI eliminate my job? Because we're seeing AI, whether it be the machine learning, the decision-making process through automation come in, or even through something as um, um, interactive as generative AI, such as ChatGPT. Now, will AI, at the pace it's moving, will it effectively eliminate my job? The short answer is yes and no. Now, what do I mean by that? There will be some jobs that AI will definitely eliminate. And I'm not going to make any, I'm not going to lie or give anyone any false hope that will not happen. There will definitely be some jobs that will be affected because of AI. And some of the research that comes through is around 23%. Now, with technology comes new opportunities. Now, let me give you an example. I live in Singapore. Now, in Singapore, I rarely walk into a bank now. And the reason for that is I can do a lot of my banking transaction through internet banking. And a lot of countries are following the same suit. Now, that traditional teller, that bank teller who I would normally go in to visit to make a transaction, whether I make a deposit or whether I, withdraw money, that relationship has now been removed. I don't need to do that anymore because I can either do it online or I can go through an ATM. So what has happened to that poor bank teller? Now, the reality is banks have not eliminated those jobs. They have actually transformed those jobs into other functions. And so what's happened is, while jobs have been eliminated, but there are new opportunities of reskilling people to move into new roles through their actual skill set. So there's some great opportunities there. The second thing is you cannot use technology to replicate humans' thinking, human imagination, human strategic processes. You just can't do that. AI is there to remove the redundancy, the repetitive task, which is great because that is the boring part of most people's jobs. And so what that does leave for people is to then start using technology to remove that boring stuff and then focus on more the creative things of their job. And that's the really exciting things, especially for HR professionals. So there's a lot of things that I see more opportunity than more threat. So if you embrace technology, you embrace AI, I promise you it'll be more friend than foe. Now, the answer to the original question, is it a friend or a foe? The short answer, it's somewhere in the middle. I would say probably leaning more towards friend. So there's a lot of opportunities out there. It's just how you embrace technology and what you can benefit from it. But the reality is it's here to stay. So before I pass on to Dr. Kwame, I always get asked the question, okay, this is great, Luxsho. I can see the value in technology, but how do I start? Now I've kind of got what I've got here is sort of a step-by-step process. But for those of you who are new to the digital transformation in the HR sphere, rather than take this approach, what my recommendation is just choose one function to get a quick result. Just choose one function in terms of where you see automation really benefiting you as an organization. So I spoke about recruitment as one area of HR that you could potentially automate and apply technology to, but there are other functions as well. And the team and I are more than happy to talk to you where you could potentially start. But my strongest advice is just pick one function of where you'd like to automate. If you're able to identify that area where especially there's a lot of repetitive tasks involved, where there's a lot of human error, where there are areas where you can capitalize and improve efficiency, start with that. If you're able to do that first and then think about some clear KPIs where you would like to see improvement, that is simply the first step. Once you've been able to identify that, that's where we can then apply technology to then help you fast track that. That's the first step I would definitely recommend in terms of how you would start this journey, if those of you are thinking about moving forward. And then with that, I'll end my presentation here. If you'd like to know more, if you'd like to just get some more information in terms of what I was just talking about, some of the areas of where you can apply technology quickly, or you're just kind of looking for some kind of quick steps, please scan the QR code and the team and I will come back to you very, very shortly and how we can then help you move on to your journey in using technology and AI for HR. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Luxo, for sharing your expertise, your knowledge with us. And the chat is open. Anyone can chat and share your queries. And over to you, Dr. Kwame, to take over. Thank you.
Thank you, Leisure, for your insightful presentation based on your technical acumen and experience. I'm going to share from our point of view whether or not HR is a friend or a foe. I won't take too much time. Would you want to scroll up? So my presentation is on there.
This is your presentation.
Okay. In the absence of that, I'll just go ahead and tell you what I know. Interestingly, there's a debate whether or not HR AI is a foe or a friend. Like you rightly said, yes, you lean towards the middle, which I totally agree. But I must also say that there are also scaring statistics to suggest that people will lose their jobs. Over 300 million jobs may be replaced unless there's a conscious effort by the employees globally to upskill and to build new competencies that has to do and involve the use of AI. The skill gap, I'll tell you, is huge in our part of the world. Organizations, I don't think, are investing enough into the talents regarding the use of AI. Until that happens in that part of the world, the chances are that there's going to be a huge gap which has to be filled. In the absence of that, AI may rather create problems for organizations. We cannot catch up. Now we have a boundaryless world, boundaryless organizations, for which reason I recommend strongly that HR practitioners must work hard with organizations, look at their strategy, look at their review, their missions, their vision, look at where they are going, and put systems in place to support their employees to be able to adapt to the use of AI in HR. Why? Recently, I gave somebody a little task as a researcher. We wanted to see how it works. So we asked him to just mention or go to an AI tool, which I'll not mention, to list certain labor practices based on our laws. In Ghana, we did know very well that we had only 3. AI produced 8. So we went back into looking at another 2, and trust me, we realized that AI was able to pull from about 8 countries their labor act and practices and shared same with this individual as sacrosanct answer. However, the answer we say was misleading. Why? Because it pulled other jurisdictions, their labor act, which were not, in fact, relevant to our part of the world. So yes, we agree they may lead to about 300 jobs, full-time jobs across the group being replaced. The misinformation I just spoke about. Sometimes there's also lack of clarity of non-users. Why? Because they do not understand really what the generative AI is all about. They don't know. Until recently, when some of us took the interest to train ourselves, we did not know much about it. I read something and I was shocked about how HR AI could be used in our work on a daily basis. People write letters, but I was shocked how when you are using an AI to generate a letter or correspondence and you input the wrong thing, the chances are that you get the wrong feedback. And for me, the most important thing for HR practitioners globally, in which Ghana is no exception, is to see how we can train all HR practitioners, how we can train all employees to bridge that digital gap. Whether we like it or not, AI has come to stay. AI is going to drive how we do business, how we communicate, how we select, how we even terminate in the termination process or resizing and making a determination as to who should be selected into a succession management pool. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kwame, for your insightful thoughts and your expertise as well. And yes, thank you all attendees for joining today's webinar. And hopefully that you all learned something new from Mr. Luxsho and Dr. Kwame on the influence on AI, HRO, Friendo 4. So let's meet back again with something new back in Ghana. And if there's anything more you all need to clarify, connect People's HR, our partner EITBS from Ghana is always available. You can contact them and you can contact Mr. Alex from EITBS, and we are happy to serve you in more and more knowledge that is required for you in related to AI and HR. See you all. Thank you for joining and see you soon. Bye-bye.